Hello and a very warm welcome to this brand new podcast. This week, I am blessed to have someone I do not know personally, and I hope to know better as we progress in this podcast. Welcome, Mr. Karmendra Kohli.
Thank you, Surinder ji. It's my pleasure as well to be here and to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. Uh, for the audience, Karmendra Kohli ji is running a cybersecurity firm, and he is the co-founder and the CEO of the company. And he's been in the field for quite a while. But today's topic, as we were discussing before I put the recording on, was leadership. So, one of the very interesting questions that came to me around 15 minutes back was, what would the younger you think about you today as a leader, as a professional? That was, I thought, a very interesting question to start with.
Great. Actually, it's a very interesting question, and I need to really take a few seconds to think about it,
Please,
and
please.
put that in context. And uh, yes, yes. So I think the younger me would really first is appreciate the journey that this individual has gone through over these years,
Okay.
um, and then look at look at the maturity in various aspects that has trickled in, I would say. And Definitely the while the younger me would have various aspirations that this today's me could have been at certain places. um, uh, there would be possibly a kind of judgment that the this today's me could have been relatively better in certain aspects, but then I think there would also be a satisfaction that wherever we are, at least we are there, you know.
Okay.
And then the other aspect I think is about um, this leadership aspect, where this individual would have grown over this period of time, looking at the various experiences that goes through, and become again um, more more mature as a leader, more considerate as a leader, have a higher emotional quotient as a leader. And I think that's something that the younger me would acknowledge in this today's me.
Okay. Uh, you mentioned a certain few facets that you would have expected to be more. Can you throw some light on what facets would the younger you expect in you today? Because now we are talking real time in that sense.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, if I were to divide it, let's say professionally, personally,
Yeah.
and let's say socially, right? And maybe going towards, let's say, the philosophical side, the search for the real me, right? So,
Oh,
look at professionally. Um, Today, I think we are a mid-sized organization. Maybe over this past, if I were to say 15 years behind me,
yeah.
or 15 years ago me, possibly one would expect the company to be a much larger organization in
Oh, okay.
in these years. But then the path chosen was consciously organic, and that's where the growth today is where we are. And I think the younger me would, if younger me would certainly accept that if there is organic growth, Then in the past 15 years, many companies have come and gone.
True.
But companies which are in the league of Secureyes in cybersecurity today in India are only a handful. I think single digit, if I were to put that,
Okay.
or maybe reach a double digit, but less than 20, definitely. So that I think professionally, personally, I think the maturity would have been expected to be much faster. That would be the expectation. But then, like we were having a short discussion, that life has its own ways, right?
Yeah.
While we may define, we may plan, we may set goals, some things may work because they are supposed to work, and we think they work because we have planned it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But others may not work because that's how it's meant to be, possibly. So I think, but then yes, looking at the personal side, maybe the maturity of the individual could be better. That would have been an aspiration, maybe. A better understanding of other people, a more better understanding, I would say, because
Yeah.
it's always relative,
Yeah.
and every time, like, if we reach a plateau, we realize that it's just a plateau and there's again a climb. There's keeps changing. uh, so from that perspective, I think, um, yes, a better understanding of people, um, being more mindful in certain situations which are more, I would say, stressful, or which are out of what we usually call as normal. Then maybe be more conscious on the response and the reaction. That would be, I think, the expectation that this today's me would be better in those areas. From a social aspect, maybe over a period of time, I do not know whether it happens with everybody, but the footprint has certainly reduced. And I've never been active social digitally active identity. I've kept it low key because that's how I possibly digitally I am. But I would call myself a extrovert in the physical world, the real world, where I'm
Hmm.
not too worried about what others would think if I were to approach and talk to people. And that's how I perceive myself. And so from that perspective, I think that footprint, which has reduced for various reasons, could have been maintained in a much better way. So that would be another aspect.
Okay.
And from the philosophical side, maybe, spend more time on that aspect as well, would have been a aspiration. um, Look at things more practically, because everybody has a path which they follow, right? And look at things more practically, learn from experiences and take those learnings inside and apply them much more efficiently, much more consciously. I think that these are the things which come to fore right now.
Are you kind to yourself?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think I've again matured in that aspect, where earlier I would say I was not. Over a period of time, I can feel that it's still better.
Okay. Because I saw that every time you said this could be better, this could be better, I said, I was just looking at your website sheerly to uh, communicate your introduction right. And you won some award for being the best in some field. And uh, how does that make you feel? Are you very proud? How do you see your achievements internally when you're alone, when there is nobody to either brag or downplay or be humble? So when you're with yourself, how do you see yourself?
And specific to this point about the some of the achievements that one has had.
Achievements, or that can include the achievement of having survived for 15 years is a big deal. I would know some part of that. But the overall, okay. So when we started with how would the younger you look at you? So there was also the nuance of achievement that I was looking at. So this is
Mhm.
very specific to uh, now that you're doing well in certain areas. How do you look at yourself? Are you proud? Um, are you arrogant? Um, how do you see yourself? What is the landscape uh, within the mind?
So I think, uh, uh, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm arrogant because I can't take complete credit of every achievement that whether the organization has had or I have had. I don't think I can take the complete credit. There have
Okay.
been various actors, both known, unknown, direct, indirect, tangible, intangible, which work uh, to achieve something. So from that aspect, I think I see that I won't definitely be arrogant. I would definitely be proud in a very positive way. Uh, Also to spread that positivity in the organization that yes, we've done it together. And we have done it together. It's not just to send a message, but to send a message to communicate to everybody that yes, we've done it together. Because alone, there's only so much one can do. So that's one bit. The other thing is, I think some of the achievements have been humbling also, uh, because in some of them we were chosen, others were not. Whereas I wouldn't, I can't say in many of them that they were not as good as us or we were better than them. But yes, like I said, there are so many parameters that act, and for those achievements we were chosen. So yeah.
Um, on a daily basis, what is your internal story to yourself in terms of what keeps you going or what puts you down in terms of uh, so this the earlier question was about achievement, but this is about uh, a personal look at yourself. How satisfied are you with your uh, inner growth, if that is a term that I would use loosely, obviously, uh, because there are many aspects, as we realize with growing age, that there are many aspects, and achievement for uh, all its hurrahs and glamour is sometimes just that. It is just achievement. There's nothing more to it. So how do you see your inner self at this point of time? What are the areas that are concerning? What are the areas that uh, you are happy about? So this is more personal in nature as a question.
Okay. Mm. So let me just repeat it just for my clarity's sake that as an individual, how do I relate
Yourself
to myself um, on a daily basis, right?
on a daily basis.
Hmm. So I think one of the things which I really try to do, I can't say whether I'm able to do completely, or some days I'm not able to do even a little bit, is to be grateful
Be
of be grateful
okay.
for whatever has been achieved, whatever is there in my context, both professionally and personally. I think that gratefulness is there, that um, we've been able to do at least this much. Um, that and it is about keep going on, you know, and especially in, and like you said, you see, an achievement is a event which happens point in time. Before that and after that, we are, we have to get back to business as usual,
Yeah.
whether it is professionally or personally, right? We need to get back. We can't go on that high forever. Neither we can live too much in the past achievements, neither we can take credit of too much uh, too much credit of achievements which we have had in the past to kind of satisfy us today. So I think it's about keep moving, being grateful for achievements, being grateful for learnings when we fail, learn as far as possible from the failures and the mistakes. Sometimes there may be no learning. Sometimes we may be rigid enough to not learn, to not unlearn and learn. So that also is there. But then, at least at a later point in time in the future, realize that yes, there is a learning which one can take. Um, so I think yes, the daily story is about keep going on and just because I think Surendraji, that like you said, this interview is impromptu. Every day also is impromptu.
Yeah.
Somewhere I think that is where when I said that there has been a certain maturity, that v- certain things definitely the planning has its role, doing the right thing at the right time has its role, but then also accepting that everything is not under our control also has its role. So I think a good balance of all this keeps us going. So that's that's how I would put it.
So, okay, so I have been very lucky to work with a variety of people. Uh, when I was working for other agencies, when I started my own agency, when I was running my own film company for a very brief while. Uh, so, what I mean is the variety of experiences with different leaders of sorts, whether they were small businessmen uh, or brand managers in levers and other kind of places. You seem to have a very, I'm just using a word because I can't think of a better word, but a muted personality. Uh, how do you uh, bring in the no nonsense aspect that a leader has to bring with your kind of personality? Uh, this is the question as of right now. I have other questions regarding this, but this is primarily the question.
Yes. um I think there is a importance of being clear on what one wants to achieve, right? Whether and I think somewhere what I try to do is to differentiate my role as a professional and my personality, right?
Okay.
Because when I'm playing the role of or my professional role, I cannot have, in most cases, a personality bias. While there is definitely an overlap which happens, but conscious,
Obviously.
if I won't possibly treat a failed project in a way where which I would have treated, let's say, if let's say in my college, if I flunked the subject, right, I would be more uh, like considerate then. But when there is a project which is going towards unexpected outcomes, then I would want to be play that role as a leader, be clear in communication, be clear in objectives, and communicate appropriately to the my colleagues or to stakeholders, I would say. So from that perspective, I think when one plays that any role, one is clarity of what are the expectations from that role. Because for certain things, the buck stops at you. If you don't do it, nobody does it.
True.
So in that case, whether it is about being clear, there's definitely, I don't think certain times, I mean, honestly, a brashness also comes in, but then it is very contextual. And I try to, as far as possible as a human being, not carry it beyond that scope of time, and then but then it's in the interest of the objective. So that is something that I do when it is needed. When it is not needed, it's okay.
Uh, you kind of did merge into the next question that I was planning. The nuance of which was running in my head was, how do you, so we are human beings, not machines. How much ever you plan that you are going to be, uh, I have entered meetings. I've been a kind of a rebellious kind of guy throughout. Being a creative in advertising gives you a certain kind of license that you can be brash, and it is seen as, oh, creative nakras and all that stuff. Uh, but besides that, also, there is this whole thing that I'm not going to broach any nonsense just because you are big, and because I'm a creative, I can just say I don't want to work with you and I just move on. The last 15, 20 years, I've been working on my own. So that is a liberty I've had.
Mm.
How do you not lose it? So when the stakes are so high, you've already invested time, effort. Obviously, you've chosen the right guys for the right job, and all that is a given. Nobody sits down to work towards failure. But like you said, there are certain factors. At certain times, you may have hired somebody who turns out to be an idiot, absolute idiot, and you don't know what to do because you've already invested a lot of time in learning, and your kind of field is also nascent. You said there are hardly 20 players in the field. So obviously, there is no roadmap that you can copy from here, there, everywhere, and keep moving. So there are experiential learnings happening, but all of it come at a cost of time and effort and money and those things. So when things really uh, go awry, how do you not lose it? Is the question. What do you tell yourself to be in control?
So yeah, I think what I have done, and again, this has been based on again experiences, is uh, to give to give that chance. Again, depending on the how crucial is the situation, how time sensitive is it is. If
Okay.
there is an opportunity, give a chance. If there is again liberty of time and other parameters, then give another chance. But that's it. Beyond that, I lose it. I would accept. Because there is no chance, because there are so many stakeholders involved. And that is when I think it is important that you play your role really effectively. And giving those two chances is possibly the personality aspect which comes in. Okay, if I were in that situation, and if I had also, because there are so many stories that every individual is running, right? We don't know the life of every individual, we can't know.
Yeah.
So then being a little considerate that, okay, okay, give that one chance. And again, like I said, it depends on the sensitivity. If there is no liberty of giving that chance, then you don't lose it, but you send strong messages in the interest of meeting the objectives. If it doesn't happen, then you look at contingencies. That's all. Because finally, the goal of the project, goal of the deal, finally, see, we are we are giving value, and in return of that value, the client is paying us. And if we are not able to deliver the value, we are not meeting our commitment, and which is, I think, unacceptable um, in my professional view that I have. Value is the baseline of why we work with customers, and if value and giving or delivering value is the only objective. Yes.
So since this is called the values workshop, uh, one of the things that was running in my head was, uh, I haven't generally asked this kind of question, but because we are going down a certain track, so this seems like an interesting question to ask. Tell me one value that you would definitely look for in any professional that you deal with, no matter what. And one value that you will definitely not be okay with in any professional that you're dealing with, and why. If you could give an example, that would be lovely. Some story from your working days.
Um, I think one value which I would look at any professional, whether junior or senior, uh, is integrity with openness. So integrity can be defined, can have various sub parameters, which includes, what I mean, honesty, of course, to the purpose for which they are in the organization, um, and a clear understanding of why they are here, and if they don't understand, ask questions, so that that integrity part is very clearly understood. Um, and when I say openness, it is about openness to various aspects, to learning, openness to accepting the other others who are in the environment, the ecosystem, openness to being observant and ready to change to whatever extent for the larger objective. Right. So that's how I would put it.
So adaptability could be the word also.
Adaptability can be the, yes, the right keyword as well. Uh, yes, so integrity with openness. I think that's what I primarily look at. For me, academic qualifications, certifications, having spoken at 20 places, written 5 books, all that is good to have. But if this parameter is there, then they don't really matter. If this is there and they are there, then they add more value. So that's what I would put it. What I do not uh,
Compromise on.
compromise on is um, undue. I think the reverse of this actually, which is not having the basic tenets of openness, of mutual respect, of integrity in a very broader sense. Because integrity can be interpreted in various ways. So for me, integrity would, like I said, mean those sub parameters. And if that is not demonstrated on ground, then I think I would not be comfortable working with, or I would not work with such professionals.
So I'll provoke you further on that.
Sure.
Uh, so suppose I'll just make up a story. So here is a person who works with you in your organization who's brilliant, and you know they can deliver on the parameters that you are asking for in terms of business or professional competence, but they may be a little lackadaisical on the issues that you mentioned. You worked with them, you know that every time these guys, uh, so a bad example, but John McEnroe playing tennis when we were growing up.
Right. Yes.
He was brash. He would swear at the umpires, do this, but he was brilliant. When he played, that you could just look at it and say, "What a genius!"
Yes.
And so many others. But I'm Maradona in sporting context. These are the people who you know that uh, may not be good in one aspect, but are absolute geniuses in the other. So
Right.
when if you could tell us a story or something where uh, this kind of thing has come up, or else what would you do if this hasn't happened? How would you see this?
Yes. So it has come up actually multiple times, and um,
So a story would be nice.
sure, sure. So before starting the story, I would say that, you see, there's a very, very old proverb which I'm used to. My dad also used to tell me, and so which is birds of the same feather flock together, right?
Mm,
If a different bird comes in, they may flock together for a while, but I think it's but natural that they then choose their own paths.
deviate.
Um, so it has happened both, we in early days we had a technical person who was very brilliant. So you give him a task and he would be able to turn around at 1/10 the time that others would take.
Oh,
Um, but then the the basic tenets, personality tenets were really extreme. And I'm sure we all face such personalities.
Yeah,
So, so while initially it took us some time to understand, that okay, this is the aspect, this is something which doesn't look really uh, conventional. So while we appreciated, because finally there was delivery happening, there was a lot of appreciation coming in, but over a period of time we realized that no, it is negatively impacting the ecosystem,
okay.
right? Um, so then I think we realized, and then we kind of, because it was initial days, so we were also like learning. So we gave him clear messages that these are the things which you have to be very careful about in our ecosystem. But then we see repeated instances, then we give clear communication that this
Doesn't work.
we cannot work in if this, and the other individual also, because of his personality, was okay that if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work for me also. And that's where the birds of the same feather flock together.
Yeah,
You see, otherwise an ecosystem will run only if there are people who at least have the same direction. They may have disagreements, they may have different personalities, but at least the direction is in, it's in the same direction. I mean, one thing which I again have learned over a period of time, that every individual at various levels has a frequency, right? And in my understanding, there is no 100% frequency which matches with the other individual. It's always a overlap.
yeah,
It may be a little abstract, but yes, there's always a overlap. So the more overlap with which we have with others, the better connected they are with us.
no,
If the frequency is lesser, then they become acquaintances. If the frequency is further lesser, then we don't even connect with them. So they are like, and it's both ways, because everybody understands that frequency at a very, I think, subconscious level, at a very intangible perception level. And that's where you see we do not know why we are good friends with some people while we may not even like the face of others. There is no scientific evidence of why this happens. I think, in my understanding, it's all about the frequency at various levels. So, another example, like you said, very senior professional, hired for a certain task, and highly regarded in the industry. No. But in our ecosystem, unable to deliver. So month on month, we were. So what happens in such situations is that the perception of the professional first comes to fore, and the first quarter goes just because
yeah,
of perception. But then from the second quarter, you start realizing that maybe in this ecosystem, the person is somewhere not really able to meet the objective.
yeah,
And then 6 months go by then, and by the ninth month, you realize, yes, this is not working out. So it has happened, and then we've politely told, we've had meetings. So one thing which I've learned again over a period of time, it's better to over communicate in such situations than not communicate. Keep having those conversations to understand that whether the other individual is really able to understand our point of view, or is open to at least listen, may disagree, but is he or she open to listening and giving a thought. And similarly, on our side, we also should be open, and we are, I think, in most instances, open to looking at the perspective of others. So that has happened. So that's another example that I would say. Yeah.
okay. A little more probing on a similar but different aspect. So I have friends who run companies and successful companies. Uh, we talk a lot about, as you grow, I think a lot of maturity comes in. Life is very kind that way. it will enforce its lesson, uh, whether you have the openness that you mentioned or not. It will keep on hitting you till the time you bring in that requisite parameters of openness, acceptance, and also understanding. So, co-founder, co-founder, that means there are other founders.
Yes.
How and what are the parameters which needed to be worked on in your case in the beginning and say now? So, what are the things that you have? Uh, Obviously, there will be differences of opinion, there will be differences of personality, uh, and you run a reasonably big business, so there are number of other individuals who can play one against the other, and somebody might be your favorite and the other person might be somebody's favorite. Those kind of little things also. I'm not specifically meaning that, but
Yes.
what I mean is that a lot of issues can crop up. How and what were the issues in your case, and how did you successfully continue negotiating them till now?
Yes. I think very pertinent question. And I think I continued.
Whatever you are comfortable with
Yes.
mentioning on camera, obviously, but it's more about the spirit of. So the idea is that there are other people running businesses who have partners, who have differences with partners. When they are watching this, what is the take home? What are the things that helped you personally? It is more about your mind space rather than the actual incident or you winning or the other person winning or not. So
Yes.
you can be comfortable with whatever your answer is in that sense.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I would say that having difference of opinion is very good.
Okay.
Um, having so again, like in a marriage, what happens is, you know, I have grown up in a certain environment, certain things run in a certain way, and similarly, the partner has grown up in a certain environment. But then what happens is after marriage, there are expectations. Even like very minor things come as a surprise. Oh, itna nahi pata.
Ah,
And it
true.
is mutual, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But what is acting up is our conditioning rather than anything else. You see, because there is no framework that this is how marriages should work, partnerships should work. Similarly, in business, there is absolutely no framework. Even if we take 10 trainings, finally, the events that show up in a day, in a week, in a month, will decide how robust the, like you called, the spirit of partnership is. So it's a partnership, whether it is, and I would say finally it is about two human beings, two individuals, two identities, two personalities.
yeah,
So it took a while to understand that yes, difference of opinion is good. The other may have an opinion which is completely divergent from what I have, and similarly, my other co-founder. Because obviously, being professionals, techies, and some part of the personality also accept is that my view is right, and the convincing is about my view being right. Somewhere I will give credit to my co-founder that he has demonstrated more maturity in early days than I. He gave me that benefit, that
space.
space, that okay, I will listen to you and maybe you make sense, even though I have a difference in opinion. Let's do what you are saying. Okay.
True.
Uh, Somewhere I think we reconciled over a period of time that these aspects of the business is something that I am good at, or
Yeah,
it helps that if there is a difference of opinion, then my opinion should get a priority, and then we see. And in these areas of business, his opinion takes priority. I think that realization happened over a period of time, and I think that has worked well. But that doesn't mean that again difference of opinion doesn't happen. It still happens. But I think there is a Understanding that while difference of opinion, disagreements continue to happen, the mutual respect remains the same. And it has remained the same, touch wood. And I would say neither of us can take credit
Oh,
because
of course.
it has worked out. Uh, there have been efforts, but apart from conscious efforts, there are things where we give each other mutual space. We listen to each other. I think that's something that I have seen uh, doesn't happen much, especially when there are times where stress levels are high. Taking a step back, taking two deep breaths, and giving that space to, okay, let's listen to each other. I think that's something that we've kind of inculcated over a period of time.
Okay. Uh, so,
And
uh,
one more thing, if I may add,
sorry, please, please.
there was a realization, that when we started, that this is the start point. We both are at zero, and we are two co-founders. I mean, two of us.
Yeah,
This is zero. We are starting at zero, right? And this is our base. So whatever we become tomorrow, this is where we had started, right? Should never forget this. And somewhere or the other, I think we keep coming back to that point that everything started from here. So everything, uh, nothing takes more priority than that realization that we had started at zero at one point, and zero is the state.
beautiful. Uh, so one of my friends who has two partners was mentioning this. He says that's why we got there in the first place. So there will be days when you will do very well and the other will seem like a loser. Because we were talking about some other company which has the same problems, and I was mentioning to him. And he said, this is my advice that you got together in the first place because you liked each other. It's important to remember that.
Yes.
And I thought that was a very simple and beautiful explanation to which is otherwise a very contentious issue. People can make egos come in between and it becomes difficult to deal with things. So, off late, there has been a lot of questions about uh, defining what women and men stand for in that sense, uh, so that men can be more expressive about their emotions and uh, women can be like this or like that, or whatever the discussions are. There are various levels of thought on that. Uh, my question is particularly about values like kindness, honesty, humility, peaceful interaction, uh, things which are seen as uh, not very useful in a world which is very uh, aggressive in your face, uh, where the people who are in the news and going for it and have that X factor, those kind of things are given a lot more mileage. How do you, as a leader, see um, these values, which may actually not give you anything in the long run? That is something that every person who's honest and who's kind, who's compassionate, uh, who has these human values that we were taught about in moral science subject as a subject in school, which are no longer
Most
talked about. And
most unimportant subject actually.
yeah, so
This
how do you as a leader see it? How do you bring it about in your organization? Do you give it any? Uh, there is a lot of lip service. Nobody says that this is not important, but anything in particular that you would want to mention, which is why it is critical to you, or do you really see the other side as important? Because you cannot deny the fact, like you said, you have to put your view forward. Sometimes you have to be tough. Uh, so how do you look at these things? Because these are being spoken about a lot, but these are spoken about uh, as personality traits that are either people are extremely proud of because of that flag bearing nature of them, or else they are seen as something to be ashamed of. So, one little thing out of the blue, but not directly concerned with this. So, I have a friend who was talking to me. She has a kid in, I don't know, seventh, eighth standard, I don't know, who's a reader. But because everybody calls her a nerd, she is now reading in secret. She does not want to reveal this aspect to others. So she
Mm.
comes and tells her mom, "Hey, listen, I'm not telling anybody. You please don't tell anybody that I read." So she acts dumb in front of her friends when the topic comes up. Have you read this book? So that
Mm.
she's not secluded or she doesn't feel lonely about this. So
Mm.
that kind of aspect I'm asking, something that should you should be actually happy about or proud,
Yes.
not in a bragging sense, but it is an
Right.
important way to learn. But now it is the reverse. So those kind of things. How do you see the softer values? That's the word I was searching
Right. Um, I'm reminded of one, I would say, one line in one of the very early books that I'd read of Swami Vivekananda. He said that the difference between India and the Western world is that in India the religion is very flexible, whereas culture is rigid. Whereas in the West, religion is rigid and the culture is very flexible.
for. Yeah.
Yeah. And I somewhere relate to that. When we say culture, it includes this aspect of the masculine and feminine aspect. And he'd also said that if both are merged together, both take learnings from each other, it will be a wonderful world. And I truly believe in that from that aspect that, culturally, of course, India's nuances, and we're talking about India in this context,
Okay.
the way we look at the feminine aspect in some of the societies is maybe lower than, or the masculine aspect is always considered higher, stronger, etc. But a vice versa also happens. There are societies where women, the feminine aspect is considered more powerful, and they demonstrate by giving power to the women. Now, from my perspective, I think uh, every individual has a masculine and feminine aspect, irrespective of their gender,
Yeah.
and that is demonstrated in their day-to-day living. Definitely, conditioning acts up. Like if you keep telling a girl that you are a girl, you are a girl, and this is how you should behave, and similarly you are a boy, and this is how should behave. Conditioning acts up, but the basic tenets of the masculine and feminine aspects are there in every individual, is what I believe and I observe also. For me, in our ecosystem of the organization, the importance of a professional is equal, whether it is a girl or a boy, a male or a female. There are obviously there are limitations that are there. For example, working late nights, working overnight in office, in a customer place. We do not want our female colleagues to do that because obviously there are limitations. Similarly, male colleagues do it. But there have been instances where female colleagues have said that no, I want to do it because I want to learn. I want to also go through that same, I would say the drill so that I become stronger professional, and we have allowed that. But considering the way the society in India at a larger level is, I think the conditioning does act up. But from our side, at least from my side and my co-founder side, we look at professionals neutrally. We give that respect, and we I would say are successful in terms of that our colleagues also are following those tenets. Uh, yes. For example, uh, I think there have been instances where we have given opportunities to um, uh, I would say, deserving candidates to take up a certain challenging project, irrespective of their gender. And it has really worked out. And that those exemplify that, as a professional, being a male or a female uh, does not have or has a very little bearing. It's mostly about how your attitude is, your professionalism is, and your ability to take up the work, the role that you've been assigned. I think that's how I would put it. I do not know whether I covered all aspects of your questions. If I've left out something,
I
you please prompt me.
do want to bring that up. So this was more about the softer aspects of anybody's personality. It may include gender, but it is not the uh, most important part of that question. The question is more that uh, I'm just again creating a scenario because I do not really have a exact uh, situation to talk of. So suppose there is a person in your team who is not very aggressive but is very good at his job or her job, whatever the case may be, and will not come forward to outscream the other to say, okay, give this project to me. You know that that person, male or female, is good at what they are doing. How do you ensure that uh, people like these or people who are uh, so for example, I have mentioned what we do on Saturdays is cook for 100 people, the group of friends coming together. So now that effectively also I want to give you an example of what had happened. So this friend and me, when we kind of envisaged this that we will start this, so two or three of us came together and we started this. Now we are 7 or 8 of us who are doing this every week. So in the first week, when we earlier we did this in New Bombay, now we do it in Thane. So when we kind of took up a place and started buying utensils and stuff like that, like this was a commitment at every stage. It's like running any organization. Every Saturday, come hell or high water, we are going to do this. So for
Mm.
the rest of it. So within the first week, he had a very important meeting to attend on Saturday. And he is the guy who cooks. I am the guy who arranges. So now there are obviously others, but I'm just giving you at that point that was the scenario. So I told him if you are not there, then we'll make mayo sandwiches and give away and put some cabbage, carrot, or whatever. But the 100 people will be fed something.
Mm.
Uh, so he says, no, no, that is not happening. We need to cook something nice. So he cancelled his meeting on Saturday. And next week, my wife's yoga teacher was getting married, and I was saying I had to go there for lunch. So he says, no, no, nothing doing. On Saturdays, we don't have a personal life. Now, this is it.
Mm.
Obviously, that has changed now with 7, 8, 10 people. So all of us can get breaks every now and then.
Mm.
Family issues come up. We are all growing up. There are other issues that come up. But that is the kind of thing that uh, may not be supported by an organization. So if something like this comes up, so this guy is being part of something. Obviously, there will be deviations. There will be some project that you cannot let a person go. But how do you sustain this kind of? How do you look as a leader to these things where people have personal lives, which may be they may spend it with their families in a very good spirited way. It's not just attachment to the family, but saying no, I need a work life balance that is important to me, or else something like I mentioned here that we let go of our Saturdays. Uh, so how would you as a leader see this? Have you supported anything like this, and have you experienced? Obviously, there are problems also because like he had to let go of his meeting, I had to let go of my social concern. Obviously, after that, so many times it has happened, but we are all clear.
Mm.
Uh, there are deaths and there are family functions and everything. But now, all in the family also include Saturdays. These guys are not available. So that has automatically happened, more or less. So sorry to digress, but that is where my question was coming from. Kindness, honesty, these kind of softer things may need things which may not give you um, anything back in terms of monetary value or glamour value, but they keep the society a little better, perhaps.
Right. So two parts of this question or this conversation. I think the first part, like you said, if somebody is docile, somebody is not as vocal, but they do good work, and there are others who are more communicative, more uh,
Yeah,
expressive. So I think that's where the role of leaders come in, right? To understand the key aspects, the key parameters which make up a professional, right? And cut the facade wherever there's a facade, right? And
true.
see through the facade, and then give the deserving the necessary opportunities. And I think that has also been over a period of time a very important thing that we've learned. And it is extremely important for a leader to see through this, to identify the right people, irrespective of the gender, like you said, irrespective of the of the of
Personality traits.
personality traits, etc. And I think we've been able to do it, and that's our role. Our role, our subordinates who are leaders, they have to identify, give that equal opportunity. So that's first part of the conversation. The second part is um, whether pressures, whether business pressures ignore the personal responsibilities of individuals when need comes, or is it like a continuous thing,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good way to phrase it.
So in our scenario, I think that's one of the things where I link it to the organic way of growth that we have chosen for us, is that we wanted to consciously give that space to all our colleagues. It is important to understand the purposefulness of their professional tasks and the objectives of the professional tasks, and come up to come up in times where we all need to give that everything that I have, get in that combat mode. But in other times, we give complete, I would say, respect to the personal space of all our colleagues. And possibly that's the reason why, we've, over these 18 years now, the organization is 18 years
Okay.
young, I would say.
Yeah.
And we've been able to
So
set that
we,
right balance. Yes. And to ensure that spikes are lesser, there's more predictability in the way work happens. But then, yes, there are situations where there is a need of the hour for people to act up, and they act up if there's any emergency. Then we have others who double up. So finally, the objective is important.
last two questions, I would say. Uh, what are the aspects of leadership that you think you guys have, or you personally have, uh, that has helped you uh, stay on the top? Obviously, you took a decision to be the topmost guy in that organization because you started it, and but irrespective of that part, uh, say hypothetically, if you were in another organization and doing the job of a professional rather than just being the owner, maybe a stakeholder of some sort, but still, why and what do you have that would hold you in good stead? That is my second last question.
Um, I think one of the traits that I would say I've been blessed with, can't take credit, is that, and I mean, quite honestly, there are so many things that I think come naturally, which I would say I've been it has been graced on me. It is not something that I can take credit. While I can take credit, but I don't think it is right to take credit. So first thing is to break down um, complex items, issues, matters into simple things. I think
Okay.
that's something that I have been blessed with right from
A
when young.
younger age.
Yes, a very young age. I think that's where I add value to that to the organization, and I think that's where no, I transformed into this role because at the beginning, when we started the company, we were directors. That's how we would designate ourselves. Over a period of time, I think we acquired our roles, the CEO, CTO, and the head of operations and other roles, CFO, etc. But for both of us, yes, we acquired that roles by consciously understanding that yes, these are the areas which you are good at and it maps with what a CEO has to do. And similarly, these are the areas which are your strengths, which come naturally to you.
Yeah.
And that's why you are the CTO. So I think that's so one is breaking down complex things into simple things and problem solving. I think clarity in problem solving is something that, again, I think I'm blessed with, and that's a very important thing for a leader. I think that's what gives me the kick when a problem comes in to how to quickly solve it with limited resources within a given time constraint. That the third thing I would say is ability and understanding to be fair to various individuals, looking at the broader perspective, not because finally a leader, based on which position he or she is, needs to look at the span of control. And within that span of control, every individual, whether in a professional stature, minimal, or the maximum or the highest privileged individual, if there is a decision to be taken, both need to be considered. I think that's something that I'm blessed with. And
So
these,
one little
yes.
uh, fun question suddenly that has cropped up. So when and how do you let your hair down if everything is so serious and uh, meticulous in your thinking and the way you go about things? Where does where do you as a leader see yourself in terms of saying कि यार बस है अभी ठीक है अभी ये भी कर सकते हैं भाड़ में जाए वाला origin मतलब even if it is a simple thing there are people who have different things they have sports. I knew somebody who used to say कि 5:30 बजे उठ के स्विमिंग जाता हूँ बाकी भाड़ में जाए दुनिया. He is quite a very accomplished guy right now. uh, but at that point also he says ठंड हो गर्मी हो कुछ 5:30 swimming is my thing only my time. So what do you do to do that before I ask you the serious question?
uh, I mean, mm, somewhere, you know what, Surinderji, may be very contrary to how usually it is. I have stayed away from habits, whether good or bad.
Ah, okay.
Anything that becomes a habit, I mean, that's again, like I said, something that I have consciously chosen, that whether it is, for example, I do swim, and I have had instances where I've said that I will do this every day for the next 1 year, come what may. And then over a period of time, I've realized that while I've done it, do I need to continue this habit? No, I don't need to, because I don't need a good or a bad habit. Uh,
Okay.
so that's something that I think I can't put a finger to that this is something that I do every time. No, but yes, I think shifting from a very serious state of mind, and especially professionally, to completely unwinding state, I think just takes a moment. It doesn't take too
Ah,
much.
wonderful.
Both for me and my co-founder, I think that's something that we are able to do.
So connected to that, do you laugh at yourself?
Yes, I think I do, and I'm pretty amused at how this identity acts up sometimes. and it really surprises. So I do laugh at, and I'm conscious of laughing at others. I think earlier I didn't used to be, but now I'm really, really conscious because when I laugh at others, I always look at that. I am no different.
Yes, yes. I think that is a beautiful trait to have because uh, we recognize it is the word actually because we think we are using our cognitive sense and thinking this person is like this, but we actually recognize and realize that okay, this aspect of me is perhaps available in other people's mindset as well. Uh,
Absolutely.
so my kind of last question, what are the things that make you fearful, doubtful, out of control? Uh, and how do you come out of such states of mind when you're really feeling vulnerable? Because, so a bit of context, but it's not necessary. This is as a person, how do you do it, is what I would want to know.
Mm.
Because as a leader, obviously, then there are other aspects that come into play, uh, which I don't want you to go because you kind of covered it very well in your other answers. But when you're alone and you're feeling vulnerable, okay, here is a project which is, or a personal relationship problem, or something else which makes you doubtful, fearful. What is it that you do to kind of resolve it for yourself? Like as a human being, all of us have those things.
I think sometimes it is important to uh, understand and realize, and which I have tried to again inculcate, is that problems of the mind cannot always be solved by the mind.
Okay,
So, um, if and where possible, and I've kind of tried to do that, uh, not not really, or I would say rather, go to a space where the mind is not solving it.
okay.
It may seem very abstract, but I mean, this is the
But say intuitive gut feel, is that what you are saying?
actually, I would say sometimes in certain very stressful situations, it's a state of no mind.
Okay,
I won't call it intuitive. I won't call it. I would say it's like I'd read a very interesting statement very recently, and somewhere I've related to it, is that when there's a lot of tension or a lot of stress, a lot of challenge in the playground, it's better not to play, but to observe the playground.
okay,
From that aspect, but doesn't mean don't act, doesn't mean don't do the things that are necessary, but don't overuse the mind, don't overuse the mental faculty, is something that I think, as an individual, I've kind of again in this journey kind of understood that that works for me. I can't say it will work for everyone, or it's like
and
a
which is fine. This whole thing is about personal views only, and all stories have some kind of pain, some kind of doubt, some kind of fear. Uh, but how we manage to use our faculties, there are people. Uh, so one of the episodes, a lot of people don't watch the full episodes. They keep apologizing, but I understand that this content is fairly serious. It's not supposed to be. Uh, you can't be lackadaisical and sun liya ya nahi sun liya. I understand that. But there have been episodes where somebody has been speaking about their faith in God, and suddenly, while talking, they're saying, I need to rethink this in the middle of the episode. And
Mm,
those are the kind of moments that one lives for because these are things that make all of us very strong.
absolutely.
Having fixed answers like the habits that you mentioned are not going to resolve issues because these are just sweeping the issue under the carpet sometimes.
That
And
is
So yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's been such an interesting chat and a very different chat from the ones that I'm used to. I generally probe and provoke, and but this has also been very uh, beautiful learnings in a very everyday manner, which rarely happens because otherwise this whole thing becomes very complex or metaphysical. But you have your answers, your choice of words, your demeanor has been very inspiring, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It has been really a privilege. I did not know what to expect, and I think that's a beautiful way that you've put this format. And I've just all my inputs or answers or this conversation has been impromptu.
Yes.
Thank you. Really privileged and honored to be with you, conversing with somebody who's had so much experience. So thank you, Surinder ji.